Blog Talk Radio. Welcome to MindShifters Radio with your co-host, the Forgiveness Doctor, Dr. Michael Ryce, and his wife, Jeanie. Michael and Jeanie share with you the wisdom of the ancient Aramaic internal process of forgiveness. They offer tools and support 5 days a week. They will support you in building a solid foundation within yourself to live in pure love. In Aramaic, Rachma. Michael is the author of So Why Is This Happening to Me Again? For more information on Michael and Jeanie, please visit www.whyagain.com. And now your co-host, the Forgiveness Doctor, Dr. Michael and Jeanie Ryce. To the brightness within you and the truth that is rooted within me.
Well, welcome to our show today. We are broadcasting to you from South Florida, where it's a little cloudy and warm today. Actually, it's 82 degrees. And we are delighted and honored to be sharing the show with you. Jeanie is having some technical computer difficulties. We're on the road traveling, so she's in a facility where she's using someone else's computer, and it's giving her trouble getting on. So if you're trying to get in the chat room and you're not able to yet, please keep hitting refresh, and we'll see if she can get operational there. We have our ongoing Memorial Day, Veterans Day honoring, where we are committed to ending war on planet Earth and bringing a world of peace, which most people say, of course, that's a ridiculous goal to have. Well, it's not actually ridiculous at all. It's quite doable. It's quite doable if we can get a critical mass of people who are willing to take responsibility for their lives. Of course, it's impossible if everybody wants to keep blaming everybody else for everything that's happening inside of them. Then blaming everybody else for everything that's happening inside of them becomes a world of, oh my goodness, the title of my book, Why Is This Happening to Me Again? Guaranteed. If you don't ever take responsibility for your life, you will get to live the title of my book. However, if you choose to engage in the forgiveness process, not the Greek idea of I let you off the hook for what's happening inside of me, but the actual forgiveness process where you learn to go inside yourself and remove what never belonged in your human energy field, then everything in your world starts to change. And guess what? There's nobody left to blame. If there's nobody left to blame on planet Earth, what happens? There's no war. We're going to stop spending all of our wealth and our youth and the lives of those youth that we send to supposedly fight for peace. We're going to stop spending that, and people are going to live as human beings. If you have a question about what a human being is, I invite you to hold a newborn child. You know exactly how you're designed to live now that you think about and you tap into the energy of that newborn. That's your life. That's my life. We all come from the same place. So we're looking to reestablish human life on planet Earth, and we are delighted to be here to share it with you and to support you in that process. And let me just see if we can find Jeanie, if she's with us yet. Jeanie, are you here? If you've got your mute button pushed, I can't hear you. And maybe she's not on with us yet. So that means she's still having difficulties getting signed into the show, into the control panel. So that means that we don't have the chat room operating as yet. And unfortunately, if there's anybody out there to talk to us, we cannot hear you yet until she gets successfully signed into the show to operate the control panel. So that leaves us in kind of the awkward position of seeing if we can find a way to get signed in properly. Technical difficulties, life on the road, and here we are. We'll probably do a worksheet or two around this issue as it gives us opportunities to breathe and to learn forgiveness. So if you're new to the show and you're not sure what that forgiveness process means, if you're not sure what the forgiveness conversation means, if you've been taught, I'm in pain because of what somebody else did, and if they just changed, then my life would be okay, then what we invite you to do is to go to the website, www.why, www.whyagain.com. It's www.whyagain.com. On the right-hand side, you'll see a link that says Download Worksheets. If you go to that link, the first 4 items will give you the whole story about how forgiveness works. We're actually going to be doing an interesting interview tomorrow. There's a young man who started doing our work last year when we were here. And he was a military trainer. Sounds like perhaps one of the more efficient ones at training what, when he talked to me last year, he said were his men to kill. Pretty efficient at it, pretty good at it. Guess what he does today? Guess what? After a year of doing our work, he's in a peaceful place. He lives in a space of doing his inner work and teaching people forgiveness. How interesting. What a shift. The changes that can take place in a year. I'm going to see if, and Nene, if you happen to be listening on the phone, I hope perhaps you are, even though you can't get into the chat room and Jeanie can't turn your phones on yet. But Nene is someone we hear from fairly often, and I was going to invite Nene. I had the thought after our workshop last night. Nene was there. She did her first workshop with us last year on January the 2nd. And last night she shared that the world that she lived in was, let's say, to put it in a simple, kind word, was pretty traumatic. And now what she's doing year later, she started from day one. She got the worksheet process, and she started doing 5 worksheets a day. And last night, what she shared with our group in our workshop here in Pompano Beach, by the way, we're there for the next 3 or 4 nights. If you are interested in working with us, there are several free workshops coming up. But Nene shared last night that she just did her 3rd Why Is This Happening to Me Again workshop. She did her first Healing Through Relationships workshop. And she lives a life of success and creativity. And last night she said most of what happened was a failure. Her life was falling apart. And, you know, that's in just a year of changing the way that she uses her mind. Her whole life is turned around. And so I'm going to be inviting her sometime in the next week or so to come and do an interview with us on the show to talk to us about what a year has done for her. And tomorrow we're going to be talking to this young man who is a military trainer and what a year has done for him of doing his internal work. Jeanie, have you had success at signing into the show yet? It sounds like no. Do you have your mute button on? Okay. So I guess Jeanie's still not on the show. So we're here to talk about the process of forgiveness and recognizing that the output of our minds always comes from the content of our minds. That's one of the basic principles of the Why Is This Happening to Me Again work and MindShifters Radio, is the output of our mind comes from the content of our minds. When you recognize that the output of your mind comes from the content of your mind, then you realize that every traumatic thought and feeling you go through comes from the content of your mind. You know, the person who, let's say, for instance, has been taught to be down on themselves, they run into somebody who, let's say, metaphorically throws a spear at them. Why, you are and, you know, they have a not-so-delicious name for them. And that person is just devastated over what they've just been called. They walk away from that situation, and they're never going to see that person again in their lives. Let's set that scenario up. But as they walk away, that spear that was thrown at them, they pull out of their bodies, and for days and days and days, they keep sticking the spear back into their own bodies. They keep telling themselves about how, you know, what's wrong with me that this person called me down like that, and you know, why am I such a blankety blank person, and keep spearing themselves because of the content of their own mind. The idea of this work, once you recognize that the content of your mind is exactly that, it's just the content of your mind, Somebody can throw a spear at you, and you may not be home for delivery. You may simply be able to look at it and go, gee, it looks like maybe you have a problem. We had a young lady who called a couple of weeks ago, and she was actually on the show again yesterday, but she called a couple of weeks ago and was in great trauma over her daughter's anger. And when she started to do worksheets, she realized that her great trauma over her daughter's anger wasn't over her daughter's anger at all. It was over the content of her mind. Was able to empty the content of her mind of her trauma around what her daughter had to say. And her daughter was able to say and do all the same little rages, or big rages. Actually, it was pretty major. And she was able to stand in a place of peace. Why? How could somebody stand in a space of peace for that? Because there's no content in their mind with which one would beat oneself up. Once you recognize that, you have a chance to begin to forgive. Again, if you're not familiar with the forgiveness conversation, on the right-hand side of the website, whyagain.com, there's a link that says Download Worksheets. Click on that link. The first 4 links will give you the forgiveness process, a written explanation, the forgiveness worksheet, the latest, and we're getting some awesome feedback on the latest worksheet. There have been several new pieces that we've been learning to teach over the last few years, and we've now integrated it all into the worksheet. So download that worksheet, and then the radio show that is the next link. There's a radio show we did with a woman who called in, was totally new to the forgiveness process, and we walked her through this awesome, absolutely awesome worksheet. One of the most powerful I've seen somebody do in 27 or 28 years of doing this work. And what she goes through is just classic in that 1 hour time period. So the third link you can click on, there's an MP3. It'll download to your computer. You can just do a right click on it and just say download worksheets, download or save to the drive. And then listen to this radio show. It'll walk you through the whole forgiveness process. Now, it's not precisely the same worksheet as the one that's on the website now, but the leap is intuitive. It's pretty much, it is all the core and key steps, but there are some additional steps that we've added to the worksheet. So that forgiveness process is a way to change what's going on in your mind. And if you expect someone else to behave in a way that your own painful content will not be triggered, you are going to be sorely disappointed. If you expect someone else to change the content of your mind, then you're going to be sincerely disappointed. When you take responsibility for the content of your mind, and you recognize that if you're in pain, it's because you have painful material inside of you, then what you can do is you can begin to remove that material. And as you remove that material, everything changes. The same circumstance that yesterday would have been terror and trauma and horror, as with the young lady I just spoke about, who had this pain around what she thought was her daughter's anger, she called us 10 days, 2 weeks later, and it's like, well, my daughter just went off on me in her rage again, and I was at peace. No trauma. Why? Because every day she had been forgiving. And as you do that, you realize that this is all an inside job, that you have the right and the ability to change the content of your mind and to change the dynamics of everything that goes on in your life. Otherwise, and you can go back, there were about 16 days of radio shows that we did. There are archives on the website, whyagain.com. You can go back and see or listen to this codependence work, but a thought that comes that's important to share at this point is what we call power person-based behaviors. And power person-based behaviors are what run most people's lives. Most people function out of whatever's stored within their minds. And depending on their level of stress, they are absolutely 100% predictable in what their behavior will be. And here's what runs most people's lives. When there's no stress, they will do automatically, there's an automatic decision system in here, they will automatically do whatever it is that their power person, that they did to get along with your power person. So think about yourself in relationship, and when there's no stress going on, do you do what you did? Do you get along with people like you did with your power person? Then what happens is level 2 behavior. Stress starts to build. When stress starts to build, people switch into functioning out of whatever they did, the behaviors that they did to resist and survive with their power person. So stress goes up. All of a sudden, it's whatever they did, not what they did to get along with their power person, but what they did to resist and survive. And then the third level of behavior, when someone becomes ultra-stressed, is they will do whatever their power person did to them that they hated the most. And they'll do it to the one that they say they love. Interesting song title, so popular in our culture, You Only Hurt the One You Love. Why is that? Because if your interaction with your power person was one of being hurt, guaranteed that when the stress is up and the chips are down, you will do whatever it is that your power person did that you hated the most, and you will do it to that person that you say you love. Or, there was a gentleman, interestingly enough, he's actually down here in South Florida last year that I talked to, and he was very proud of the fact that, that wasn't true for him, because his father was horrifically physically abusive. And he said, I have never laid a hand on my son, so I overcame that dynamic. And my response to him was, okay, sounds good, you never laid a hand on him, but how much time did you and do you still spend working within yourself to refrain from laying your hands on somebody and being physically abusive? And he just about fell over. It was like, gasp. Yeah, I have to deal with that every day. I still struggle with not hitting people because that's what his power person did to him. So he was able to have enough self-control and discipline not to hit his children, but every day when the stress was up and the chips were down, he had to struggle with his own mind. And he had been clean and sober for 23 or 24 years. He'd stopped using alcohol and cleaned his life up 24 years ago. But guess what he still struggled with? His desire to hit people. Now, you can end that struggle with forgiveness. If you find yourself trying to discipline yourself, trying to change behaviors and stop lashing out verbally, emotionally, physically, there is a way that you can put an end to that struggle and put an end to the inclination to do that behavior. The way is called forgiveness. Again, forgiveness not being about letting somebody else off the hook because of what's happening inside of you, but forgiveness is the tool from the ancient Aramaic with which you go inside yourself and remove what never belonged in you in the first place. And so that's our project here. That's what we're here to do, and that's what we're here to support you in. And let's check and see if Jeanie has been able to sign on to the chat room yet in the control panel. Are you with us, Jeanie? Well, I presume that, no, she's not. So we'll let that thought go. I guess she's not going to get on the way that it's going, and so unfortunately, we I guess are not going to be able to take calls today, and so we'll move forward with the ideas of forgiveness and looking at the power person dynamics to move out of those dynamics and into a true human life. Again, if you have any question about what a human life is, we invite you to hold a newborn child. You will know exactly what a newborn child is. We actually had a young man who was at our workshop last night. It was kind of an interesting piece of information that we brought forward last night. We were working with the whole idea of purpose and being in integrity with oneself. And he shared with us the statistic that had come from an insurance actuary that he knew. It was a friend of his who worked for an insurance company. And they were looking at people who, an interesting little topic, who had heart attacks during sex. This is insurance company statistics. And in the statistics, 85% of the heart attacks that were had by men, this was a male statistic, 85% of the men who had a heart attack while they were engaged in sex were engaged with someone they were having an affair with, not their spouse. 85%. People think they can get away with and do things that are out of integrity with their own energy and not pay the price. What does that say? That 85% of men who have heart attacks while they're engaged in sex are doing it outside of their marriage. That says that the guilt, the fear, the pain, the trauma that's going on in their primary relationship and the fact that they've stepped outside of their marriage is taking such a toll on them that it's killing them. Now, people think that, well, if I cheat on my spouse, so what? I've actually worked with people whose therapists told them if they weren't particularly excited about being intimate with their spouse, that what they should do is just fantasize about the latest movie star while they're being intimate with their partner, as though what you do with your mind means nothing. We're here to inform you that what you do with your mind means everything. And I think that this statistic, I have not gone and done research on it. This was something that someone shared with us in the workshop yesterday. I'll be doing some research and see if we can come back with it, because I think there are many, many accurate conclusions we can draw from that. The main one being, if I'm out of integrity with myself, it is a killer energy. And part of this work is to inspire people to get back into, if they're out of integrity with themselves, to get back into integrity with themselves and with the people around them. Because when we are energetically out of integrity, we are in a disease process. And what our work is about is ending these disease processes, is getting back to telling the truth so that you're actually in your relationship. Rather than, it's amazing how many people are in a relationship, they don't ever tell the truth, and they wonder why the relationship isn't working. If you don't tell the truth in your relationships, then you're really not even in your relationship. You have exited your relationship. If you're living a lie, then it's time to get back into integrity with yourself. Now, most people say, you don't know my partner. It's like, you know something? If you're out of integrity with yourself, I don't, and you don't have to know anything about your partner, because everything you think you know about your partner is a projection. Everything you think you know about your partner is about you. It's not about your partner. And what you need to do first and foremost is get back into integrity with yourself. Now, if you come from a bloodline of cheaters, people who, think that playing around outside of their relationships is perfectly fine and perfectly appropriate, then there's a huge quantity of work to be done to get back into an honest relationship with yourself and an honest relationship with those around you. Because what happens is, when we choose not to be responsible for ourselves, we listen to the lie that our mind tells us. And the main lie that most people listen to is, you made me sad, you made me angry, you made me afraid, you hurt me. The culture asks the question, how did that make you feel? Well, excuse me, it's an errant question. Nothing I would offer can make you feel anything except what's going on inside of you. And if it's going on inside of you and you deny it, you dissociate from it, and when you dissociate from it, you can pretend that somebody else is the cause of what's happening inside of you. And that tends to be crazy-making in relationship. And while the person who does that blames their partner for what's going on in the relationship, they have no idea that they are absolutely 100% cause of what's going on inside of themselves. And that cause is the reason for the insanity in their relationship, for the trauma and the drama. It's not anybody else's fault. So if you're in a relationship and you expect that relationship to work and you're not telling the truth and you're blaming your partner, you're kidding yourself. And if you think that you can just move on from that relationship and, oh, well, I'll just start another one. It was actually a pretty awesome film that we watched recently. It was called Ghosts of Girlfriends Past. Very powerful portrayal of why a man, especially, well, it's the same with men or women, is unable to truly be there in relationship and work through the relationship issues that need to be done. If you haven't seen that film and you're looking at relationship dynamics within your own life and, gee, why can't I commit? Why can't I be there? Totally, completely committed in this relationship. Get a hold of that film. Matthew McConaughey plays a great part in it. He's Mr. Joe Hero. He is the ladies' man, and he beds every woman that he looks at, and he makes no bones about it, and everybody knows that he's good at it. He's the best. Other guys come to him for instructions on how to be that kind of a hero. Well, I'd offer that kind of a hero isn't a hero. That kind of a hero is a nobody and a nothing. There is no human life in them. They're playing out of and being defined by their power person dynamics and by the pain that they refuse to deal with. This film is an awesome portrayal of a man who plays that hero role, that role where he thinks he's everybody's everything when in fact he's nothing. And he goes back and is shown the root of his pain and of his trauma and given the opportunity to work through it and does quite a credible job of working through it. It's really very, very powerful film. I don't know whether, someplace like Netflix has it or not, but it's a film that's worth watching if you're dealing with relationship issues. And let us try once more and see if Jeanie has been able to get on the chat room. Jeanie, are you with us? No. Well, I apologize for anybody that's trying to call into the show that you're just able to listen at this point because the chat room is not opening up, and therefore we can't turn on anybody's phones. I guess Jeanie's not able to sign into the control panel for our radio show today. So, unfortunately, that's where we are today. But tomorrow's show is going to be awesome because we're going to be interviewing and talking with a military veteran who very recently was in the field training people to kill people and totally, completely believed in what he was doing. Totally, completely thought. And he was, this guy's a big guy. He's about, 6'6", and built like a tank and good at training people to murder, to kill. And he's going to share with us tomorrow his transition from that mindset to one where what he does now is he works with people who are in 12-step programs.
Michael, are you there?
And learning. Hey, I'm here. We must have got on. Awesome. Dr. Tim.
Jeanie, are you there?
I am. Thank you so much, Tim. I was able to get into the chat room, but this computer will not. It's got an old browser, and the old browser will not open up the switchboard itself. And I tried to download a new browser, and it's locked so that it won't allow me to download any kind of software at all. So I've been in the chat room talking to people, but I couldn't turn the switchboard on, and Tim volunteered to do it. So thank you so much.
Awesome. It's so nice to have so much help from our friends. Hey, Tim. Hey, Jeanie.
Well, Michael, you've been talking for a while.
I have.
And I've
Your
got,
turn.
if I'm reading this correctly, two people with their hands up. One is area code 417.
And you'll have to click the microphone next to their name to turn them on. And then when they get through talking, you click the little button where it's kind of X'd out or whatever, and that'll turn it back off.
417. If it's a 417-866, that's probably, I think it's 866. That's probably, so once you turn them on, you can just leave them on.
So 417, you're on the air.
Is that you, David?
Likely. It's me. It is I.
Oh, awesome.
Hello?
Welcome to the show, David. How are you, sir?
I'm doing very well, thank you. Glad you guys were able to make the connection.
Very good. We have also somebody with their hand up who just dropped out, so never mind. So here we are. We have the new worksheet. We had the group last night introduced to the new worksheet again. The new worksheet last week and the new worksheet this week. And the forgiveness work continues. It's very exciting. There's rave reviews for the new worksheet for those who've used the other worksheets. And I actually did a whole series of worksheets in the past couple days that turned up some stuff that I probably wouldn't have gotten any other way except one specific energy technique that I know how to do. So it's very powerful, it's very good, it's very useful, and I encourage people to pick up the tool and start using it. Michael, are you there? Is anybody there?
I am, yes, sir.
Okay.
And glad to hear the space is opening up for the worksheet. One of the things that has happened each time I do put out a new worksheet, which has been a significant number of times. I mean, every time people who are used to the old worksheet, and it doesn't matter which one it was, it's like, oh, well, I like the old one better. That's pretty much a typical comment. And then we'll go on and use the newest version of the worksheet for a month or 2 or 6, and the people who start using that one are, when I introduce a new worksheet, go, oh, I like the old worksheet better. Yeah, and I think it's a lot to do with resistance to change. But I did get to teach, we just put this worksheet out for those who are new to the show just last week, and I did get to teach it 3 times this weekend. And the feedback I've gotten is that it is the most teachable worksheet yet. It is, I had more people in the last 3 days that I taught it come up to me after it and go, man, I got it and I'm going to do it, than I've ever had with any version of the worksheet. So it integrates some new tools, but as opposed to, and people sometimes when they're used to the old worksheet, it's like, well, but this one's more complicated and there's more stuff in it. Well, it's true, there is, but if you look at it really carefully, what you'll see is that what's in it is simply a review and explanation of the core of the process. And I put it in there so that when someone picks up the worksheet and starts to use it, they know exactly why the forgiveness process, they have a reminder. They're building the brain cells for something that took me 25 years to understand about the forgiveness process, and that is how the goal drives the projection and takes the information from the dissociated part of the mind. And so each time somebody does a worksheet now, they're building those brain cells. They don't have to remember that principle. It's right there in writing before them. So there are certainly more words, but the feedback I'm getting is that it is imminently teachable to new people, and the people who have let go of, oh, I like the old one better, are going, wow, is this ever taking me to a whole new place? So I'd love more of your thoughts and more of your feedback from the folks who were at the group on last night that worked with it for the second time.
Well, this really this was the first time with this worksheet because it's changed several times last week. Are you there?
I am, yes.
Okay.
And the first couple of versions of it, I did have some wrinkles that I think are worked out, and if there are any more, we'll certainly work them out. But I think the wrinkles are pretty much gone now.
Yeah, and I would agree with that. I think it's real clear. It flows nicely. It highlights the role of the goal and the importance for canceling it and why, and it spells that out. And several of the comments last night were about the clarity and power of the explanations that are now provided on the worksheet. And there are some people who look at it and just get overwhelmed because there's so much type on the worksheet. But they have the same kind of response to the old 12-step worksheet process. So if people are going to get overwhelmed by that, maybe it's possible to do a skeleton version for them to get into it. But I think this, as you feel, this was a very powerful worksheet that hit some key issues about clearing things from my energy system and my past, specifying what the role of the goal is and why it's important to cancel it if it results in any form of hostility or fear. So it's very nice. And I had a series of worksheets this morning doing some, as I was driving to work, I had a flash of an incident that happened in probably 1995. And ever since then, every time I think of this incident, I just flinch wherever I am. I don't like to remember it, and I don't want to think about it, and strong emotions come up. So I decided I would do some worksheets about it when I got to the office. And then I got to the office, and of course, it didn't want to come out. I said, what was that when I was driving that I was thinking about that I wanted to do worksheets on? And I couldn't think of it. So I thought about it and said, oh, it'll come to me, and eventually it did. And what happened was I had done a testing report back in 1995 and made a mistake on it. And when another psychologist caught the mistake, I felt absolutely humiliated and mortified. And every time since then, when that thought has come up, I have just shut it down and not wanted to think about it. So I did a worksheet on it, and when I asked for help to seeing the hidden parts of my mind, I remembered a time when I was in kindergarten after school at the house of the girl I had a crush on. I was probably 5 years old, and I was too embarrassed to say I need to go to the bathroom, and I tried to hold it, and I ended up wetting my pants in front of this young girl that I had a crush on.
Ouch.
And now this is a memory that I've had. I mean, it lives with me. I remember the time that I, blew my chances to marry this 5-year-old and have babies with her and live happily ever after because I peed my pants. I mean, it's all in there, all that humiliation and all that. But I never would have connected it to this mistake I made as a licensed clinical psychologist on a testing report write-up. But as soon as it came up and I did a breath or two, I realized that's the same level of humiliation and mortification was the word that came up.
Right.
So I did a couple more worksheets on it because it only went from about a 35 upset on a scale of 0 to 10 down to about an 8. And on the third worksheet I did on it, when I went to ask for help clearing this up, and it's basically the same thing. My goal is that I want to be perfect professionally. So I canceled the goal to be perfect professionally. And the third or fourth worksheet I did, when I closed my eyes and asked for help seeing what was going on, I saw that in that period in 1995 when this other psychologist and his friend caught my mistake, there were two women in the room. And one of them had a crush on me. And a big part of why this little mistake that we caught, and it didn't do anybody any harm, it didn't cost anybody any money, it didn't disrupt anybody's life in any way, that's been stuck in me with the emotion of humiliation and mortification since 1995. And this morning I discovered why. Because there's this other flavor of there was a woman who had a crush on me, and she was there to find out that I made this mistake, that I wasn't perfect. It was the same energy as being 5 years old and wetting my pants.
So it really hasn't been with you since 1995. It's been with you since you were 5.
Yeah, that energy's been with me since I was 5. But this mistake at 1995 has been with me and stirring up that same energy from when I was 5 years old because of the connection. Because of the connection with the woman and wanting to be liked. And so anyway, I'm a psychologist. I've been doing therapy of different forms for 37 years, and I don't know but maybe one other way to get at a connection like that. Because logically, if you tell me you know how you're going to get from this 57-year-old psychologist being embarrassed about a mistake in 1995 to wetting his pants and when he was 5 years old, I want to learn what you're smoking.
Right, I hear that. Well, I think that's one of the reasons why I've had psychologists over the years that work with multiple personality disorder that say this is the only thing they've seen that's integrated multiple personality, because it does make those links and break down the walls that keep us, the person who's in a multiple state, in that multiple state. And it's awesome to watch and hear how those things happen. That's just so fabulous. And it'll be interesting to hear how it impacts all of your relationships with women now, because I bet you're going to see a shift in the energetics of your closest relationships with women. There's going to be a change there.
Well, I look forward to that, and I will keep you posted. We have somebody who's raised a hand. Do you want to take that call?
I'll tell you what, I just have one other thought before we take that call. Before you opened up that awesome worksheet that you did, you had mentioned how people look at the new worksheet, and they're overwhelmed. And one of the things I would suggest is that you ask the question of the person who's overwhelmed by the worksheet, how does that look like your life? It's one of the traditional questions we have in this work. And what you're going to find is that person probably spends a lot of time in overwhelm. Now, they put it on the worksheet. It's the worksheet's fault that they're overwhelmed, but it really isn't. It's that's a reality that they hold, and that's another reality that can be forgiven, so that overwhelm can be healed. So that would be my thought there. It isn't the worksheet that overwhelms them, but rather what comes up in them. And as they do worksheets around that overwhelm, then they'll live in a world where they don't ever have to do overwhelm again. Certainly there is some learning to do in the new worksheet. There's some building brain cells, but to me the power of it is in the fact that once you've heard it once and you actually commit to doing worksheets, you don't have to. The psychologists tell us we need to hear something 30 times to make it our own. Well, do the 30 worksheets, and that extremely difficult principle of why would I cancel the goal for what I want and deserve this wonderful thing that's ridiculous. Do the worksheets, and that will become their own without having to go through 100 workshops to learn it. So I think it's going to really serve us in the work. But yeah, let's go to our caller.
Okay, so we have a caller, and I believe the area code is 413. So 413, you're in the air. Can we have a name and where you're calling from?
Hi, this is Linda calling from Massachusetts. Hi, Michael. Hi, Tim.
Hi, Linda.
Hey, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm just calling to ask you about a place on the new worksheet that I feel a little stuck about. I just started doing the 5 worksheets a day in November, the beginning of November, and
awesome.
So but I've been working with a different worksheet. So what I'm doing now is, because at first this worksheet was feeling a little bit much for me, but what I do is I do the 2 worksheets right now side by side, because I think it's so important for me to know exactly why I'm doing each question, and I'm not as likely to do it quickly, and I take more time and really understand what the question is asking me and how the connections are made between questions. So my question is on number 6.
Yeah.
It says, I now feel Okay, that part I get. But then it says, and ask to be shown how I have violated number 3. I'm not quite, 3, I have my goal there. I'm not sure how.
That was one of the wrinkles on the new worksheet. So if you go to the website, there's a new worksheet. The latest one fixes that wrinkle. So the one that's on the site now, and I had created that worksheet and put it out there for feedback, and when I got the feedback, I realized that there was an error in the way that Step 6 was presented that complicated it unnecessarily. So the latest worksheet now reads, as the predecessor did to it, in number 6, I now feel, and about number 1B can see that. So you look at the situation, and then you ask yourself the question, when did I violate that goal? So here's the game, and it ties back into our codependence work. If you go to the codependence workshop, we're going to ask you to do a worksheet where you name everybody who's ever offended you, the nature of their offense, your punishment thought toward them, and your advice to them. And then what we're going to do is ask you to follow your own advice. So that just opens a whole world for people when they do that worksheet. In fact, Tim just linked to an article, a paper he had published on the tapping website about the codependence tool. So the idea of that step, so now you're doing number 6, I feel, and about number 1B can see. And then I want to look back at my goal, number 3. Well, I wanted Charlie to speak to me lovingly, gently, and with respect. So I'm now asking, show me the times when I violated that goal. Oh, my God, the 3rd time I saw Charlie, I raged at him. Oh, I did the same thing. The parent who has a child raging at them, and they ask that question, goes, oh, gee, why is my child raging at me? Because they've watched me rage all my life, all their lives. Of course, they're doing what I modeled for them. So what it does is it invites you to look at a deeper level of the part of you that's projecting your upset, because they haven't followed your goal for them. At least that's the projection of it. But the real issue is I haven't followed my goal for them either. So it just opens another space in the mind to look at that. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. I'm just making notes. So it's asking to look at where I haven't followed my goal for them.
Exactly. I'm expecting it from someone else. I want you to live up to a standard that I'm not willing to live up with.
Okay, yeah. That makes sense. That makes sense. That to me is one of the most precious new pieces on the worksheet. That one, and then if you follow the arrow over and look at the box, the second box where you draw your feelings, yes,
and do a box canceling, you look at all the times you wanted that from somebody. Virtually everybody that has taken that one to heart and started to use it, their response is like, well, that's been one of the goals my whole life. That goes right back to my power person dynamic. I wanted my dad to do that. I wanted my mother to do that. I wanted my brother to do that. I wanted my first girlfriend, my first boyfriend to do that. I wanted my first spouse to do it. I wanted my child. I wanted my boss, And so I kind of, when I'm doing that step now, is I kind of look at it like a set of dominoes. This particular goal in this worksheet, in this current circumstance, is the first domino, and I just pushed it over. So when I ask myself that question, I'm going to do a mass canceling of the goals when I want it from dad, from mom, spouse, children, friends, neighbors, on and on and on. And it just, it gives you a way to very rapidly process layers of that issue through your whole life, just like bang, right there on the spot.
Wow. Excuse me. Thank you very much. Yes, it does. And I just wanted to share. Yes, I really like the worksheet. Once I take my time and read each question to myself, it's very powerful. And now that I know there's another worksheet, where I can see this question. That's great. I just wanted to share that I've just been doing the worksheet since the beginning of November, and I had told you I called a while ago and I presented this Christmas challenge to my family members and wrote them an email with a link to the first-person commitment. And I got a response from one person, a positive one from one person who she was very excited and thankful, and she had tried it, and she went into a situation that is usually stressful for her, and it was a completely different experience for her, and she was able to express appreciation and gratitude for the people there, and they were wonderful. They were so happy to receive her gratitude, and it was just like a ripple effect. So it's just, and she was only started with the commitment, and she said, at first I thought I didn't have time for this, but then I realized how important it is since I have so much stress in my life right now. So that was very gratifying. And then doing the worksheets myself, and with Julie's help, she's been mentoring me on the worksheet. It's really been helpful to me because she asks questions and brings things up that I don't know, probably would have taken me a lot longer to come to or realize, and uncovering themes that I never realized I had. Like one was I should have done better, and I deserve to be punished, which are not things that I never consciously realized. Except I do see patterns now where I felt lots of regret and sadness were coming up in my worksheets around those topics, and then not feeling comfortable in my own skin, and not being authentic with the people close to me, and how I felt that I've had this. As much as I want to be close to people, I feel like there's something between us, like I can't really be real or feel connected to them the way I feel like I could be. And so that's kind of a big piece. I'm not sure where they all connect right now, but just the other day my husband and I were sitting down and, excuse me, he made a comment, and it triggered me. It was, it just challenged me, actually. That's one of my things, too, is I don't like to be challenged. So he challenged something, and I came back with a kind of a wise remark, something muttering under my breath, and walked in the other room, and then I said, oh, okay. So I turned around and I came back, and I said, when you made that remark, a lot of feelings came up in me, and would you
breathe? Keep breathing. You're right on track. It's awesome. Feel it all the way.
And I said, could you be here to support me while I hold the space for me while I process this? And he just said yes, and he didn't really know what to expect, but he just sat there, and just all these. What I was able to do just by sitting still with it is all this tears came up, and crying and sadness about it, just about whatever. I don't know. I haven't put that together either. But I allowed myself a space, and he allowed a space where instead of walking away or just stuffing it, I just let myself feel what was under my usual way of avoiding. So. What it did for me was I let myself connect with my husband, or let him see me as I was at that moment, because usually I don't know when the last time was he ever saw me cry or have anything. I just wouldn't. I can cry by myself, but to let myself be vulnerable with him. And we've been married for 29 years.
Wow.
I haven't been able to. We both were married before briefly, and this is our second marriage, but it's been a long marriage, and it was really a challenge to just sit there and let myself just be totally authentic at that moment with him. I'm getting to a new place there in accessing what's here, and just to be real. I feel like I have lived my life not even being who I am, but not knowing what that is either. Just kind of doing what I think is expected of me, like what you said often, and I don't know if it's on this show or the archives, because I listen to archives during the day, and then I listen to you live, the archived programs, and then this show. But you were talking about how we create this image of who we think we are, that really resonated with me because I said, oh, yeah, okay, that makes sense to me because I was kind of referring to this image as a guide of how to respond to life. And so
what a fabulous piece of work. Yeah, what a fabulous piece of work. And the question I would ask you would be, have you done any worksheets on the need to protect yourself and tell the truth?
I'm not sure I've done on being safe and secure, but the need to protect myself. And what was the other one you said?
I'd do one where I'm the object of attention, and the situation is I feel I need to protect myself. How do I feel? What's my thought, et cetera? And then that will probably open something where, somewhat like Tim shared, it will probably open a situation where, like Tim at 5 years of age, held that embarrassment and, that's the kind of thing that it opens and leads to. And then the other one is a worksheet around telling the truth. And so when you do that worksheet, you're probably going to open still different files. In order for our mind to hallucinate the whole world that we see, there are a million files that go into firing to make that kind of a hologram. And each one of them that you key into that contains, a lot of emotion tends to collapse the impact of that on your life. So that might be useful. The other thing I would suggest, I think Jeanie had a thought for you first. I've got one other tool that I'd like to offer. But, Jeanie, you had some thoughts for Linda?
I just wanted to say, we really appreciated the Christmas challenge that you put out there. And for anybody else that's listening, she gave us permission to put it on our website. So if you go to the Why again, that's WHYAGAIN.com, scroll down to stories, quotes, and links, or stories to share, and it's the third link under there, and it says Christmas Challenge. And so I'd like to offer that challenge out to everybody else to do what she did, and that's to send the commitment out to everybody and challenge the people in your family that this Christmas you'll make this new commitment to each other. And so I just wanted to let everybody know that is out on the website, and we really appreciate that.
Cool. Awesome. So there's another tool that we teach. I don't know if you've been introduced to it yet, Linda.
Okay.
It's called the MindShifter. It's actually what our show is named after, is the MindShifter tool. Have you been introduced to that yet? I
don't think so. MindShifter sounds familiar, but the tool, I don't think I know that.
So let's start out, and how about writing this thought down, and then I'll tell you what we're going to do with it.
Okay.
It's safe and healing for me, Linda, to tell the truth and be totally authentic in every situation of my life. Okay. Especially you got that so far?
Yes, I do.
Especially when I feel like I've been dissed.
I've been dissed?
Dissed. Somebody disses you.
Okay, yeah, got it. Okay. Got it.
Now, we're down to just a few seconds on the show, so I'm going to have to make it quick, and maybe we can start tomorrow's show with a deeper explanation. But basically what you do is you take that thought and you draw a line down a page, the middle of a page. On the left-hand side, you write that thought. Start to write it and write everything that comes up in response to it. Every thought, every feeling, every ache, every itch, every twitch that comes up. And just keep writing the thought. Take a space where you've got an hour or two to yourself. Write the thought. It's safe and healing for it. And just write that out. What's your mind say? That's crazy. Who are you trying to kid? I got hurt when that happened. No. What you'll do is you'll dump that whole thing out on the page. We are, the time is to close the show. So we're going to say, everybody, have the best year yet of your eternal life. Bring a stranger with you to the show tomorrow. And tomorrow, Linda, will make sure you're the first one on the show if you want to call back, and we'll talk a little bit more about this.
Yeah,
Awesome.
I do. Thank you.
All right. Blessings.
Thank you for listening to Ask Angel Amy. For more information on Angel Amy, thank you for listening to MindShifters Radio with the Forgiveness Doctor, Dr. Michael Ryce, and his wife Jeanie, who present the internal Aramaic process of forgiveness. Michael and Jeanie are here every Monday through Friday on Earth Angels Radio. For more on Michael and Jeanie, please visit www.whyagain.com. That's www.whyagain.com.
Evolving continuously.